Good day, students, scholars, and curious viewers. This is Mr. SKT, otherwise known as the Super Kuroishi teacher. In this video, we're going to be continuing the laws of exponents with law number 6, the roots of powers. And what I mean by roots, I'm talking about things like square roots, cube roots, etc. So, to just briefly remind ourselves how roots work, if you have something like this is read as the square root of 9. And what you want to do when given that is find the number that when you multiply by itself, when you square it, will give you 9. In this case, it's 3, because 3 times 3, 3 squared, equals 9. Now, how does this work with algebraic expressions? So what happens here is you may have, like, for example, the b root, the bth root. That's what this represents. You could be the second root, the third root, but in this case it's the bth root of x to the a. Roots is basically the opposite. Finding the roots is basically the opposite of law 3. So instead of multiplying, what happens here is that you take the exponent and you divide it by the degree of the root. So the bth root of x to the a is equal to x to the a over b. Another example of how this actually works is, let's say you had to get the cube root or the third root of x to the 6. Then what happens is that you divide the power of that x, 6, by the root, which is 3. So you have x to the 6 over 3, which gives you x to the 2. That's pretty much how it works. Let's do another example. Let's do the square root of x to the 8. Now, many of you may be thinking, okay, we're going to divide that by 1 because there's no number there. So, and you told us that when there's no number, it's an invisible 1. Well, majority of the time, but in terms of roots, when you have square roots, like for example, it's not an invisible 1 actually, it's an invisible 2. So square root actually means to the second root, in other words. And what happens here is that you're going to divide that exponent, 2 to the 8, is going to be divided by 2, giving you answer of 2 to the 4. And which means that equals 16. And if you think about it, 2 to the 4 times 2 to the 4, if you remember your first law of exponent, that will give you 2 to the 4 plus 4, which is 8. But that's also 2 to the 4 squared. So what happened? It's all checking out. The square root of 2 to the 8 is indeed 2 to the 4. Since 2 to the 4 squared will give you 2 to the 8. Anyway, let's continue with another example. Here we have an example where a number is getting involved, well, a number without a exponent being involved. The square root of 4x to the power of 10. Remember that thing that we say all the time? Numbers operate as normal. So what's going to happen here is that since we have multiple things all under the same root sign, you can just separate them. So the square root of 4x to the 10 can be separated into the square root of 4 times the square root of x to the 10. And from there you can do them separately. Square root of 4 is 2. And the square root of x to the 10, which is x to the 10 over 2, which is x to the 5. So your final answer will be 2x to the 5. Done. And then even one like the 10th root of a to the 50, b to the 90, all you have to do is separate them. So you get the 10th root of a to the 50 times the 10th root of b to the 90. So the 10th root of a to the 50, that's a to the 50 divided by 10, which will give you a to the 5. And the 10th root of b to the 90 will be b to the 90 divided by 10, which will give you 9. Remember, these are all laws of exponents. These laws I'm showing you happen only to the exponents. Just like with the 4 over there, normal numbers operate like normal. Alright, with that being said, I have set up an exercise in which you can practice this by yourself. But today's exercise is going to be a little bit different. Today's exercise has two parts to it. I have question 1 over here, which is another simplify, leave your answer with positive exponents question. But I also have another one, which is rewrite these in root form. In the second part, I'm expecting you to use your ability of knowing what's actually happening to go in reverse, to be able to turn this back into that. So I'm zooming out. So right now I'm zooming out to give you the best view you can get. And if you wish to perform these by yourselves, you have the opportunity to pause this video. Please do so in 3, 2, 1. Okay, and that being said, let's do the correction. Alright, so the first one, I'm actually going to have them side by side just in case I have to re-thingy them. Right, so the first one we have the square root of x to the 10. Remember that if you don't see a number for a root, it's an invisible 2. Very different from all the other algebra that we've done so far. That's the only one where it's not going to be an invisible 1, as far as I know. Anyway, so the square root of x to the 10 is x to the 10 divided by 2, which gives you x to the 5. The next one, you have, that's the cube root of 8x to the 9. So when you have multiple things underneath that root sign, you can separate them. So you're going to end up with the cube root of 8 times the cube root of x to the 9. Cube root of 8 is 2. The cube root of x to the 9, x to the 9 divided by 3, giving you x to the 3. The next one, square root of 16x to the 16. Numbers operate like normal, just like with the second one. So that square root of 16 is going to become a 4. And then square root of x to the 16, it's going to be x to the 16 divided by 2, which gives you x to the 8. Right, here I got the fifth root of x to the 3, all raised to the 10. I'm combining laws here. I'm combining essentially law 6, which is this one, with a law 3. So this one, it seems intimidating at first because there's a few more things to deal with, but really it's not that bad. So firstly, this part over here can be rewritten as x to the 3 over 5. Just let me get some more natural lighting. Okay, x to the 3 over 5. And then if you remember the third law of exponents, when you have something raised by an exponent, you multiply them. So you're going to end up with x to the 3 to the 3 over 5 times x to the 10. 3 over 5 times 10 will give you a final answer of x to the 6. And then finally, we have x to the negative second root to x to the 6. Let me tell you something. This is a question that not many examiners will ask their students because it's quite absurd. But I do absurd. Come on. What's my middle name? Exactly. No, it's not exactly. It's Kuroshi. Kuroishi. It's not my real middle name, but I wish it was. Anyway, so following the same situation, you're going to divide that exponent by the root. So you're going to end up with x to the 6 over negative 2. 6 divided by negative 2 will render x to the power of negative 3. And if you remember from law 5, the negative exponents, that can be rewritten as 1 over x to the 3. Now we get to the second part of the exercise, which was rewrite in root form. So the first one is 2 to the third. If you go back to our definition, you notice that the root over here becomes the denominator. So that straight away tells me what my root is going to be. It's a third root or a cube root. And whatever the exponent of the variable or number was already, that becomes the numerator. Here, that's 2 to the 1, essentially. So this can be rewritten as 2 to the 1, or just simply 2 to the third root, or otherwise the cube root of 2. The next one, x to the power of 3 over 4. So what I'm getting from here is that the x was already to the 3, so I had x cubed, and that's being essentially put under the fourth root. And that's exactly what happens here. That's the fourth root of x to the 3. The next one, we have 5x all raised to the 1 over 5. So what I'm gathering here is that this 5x in its entirety, it's under a fifth root with nothing else being done to it, since there's a 1 up there. So which means the final answer should be the fifth root of 5x. And then finally, we have 6x to the 4 all raised to the half. Remember, when it comes to square roots, there's a invisible 2 over there. So raising something to the half is the same as doing square root. So you are essentially finding the square root of 6x to the power of 4. And that there is law 6, roots of power. Please, if you enjoyed this content, please leave a like on this video. This contributes to this video getting towards trending. Please share and subscribe, as that increases the chance of monetization. And please comment on what you would like to see next. This will really give me direction in where to take this channel, as well as the content covered. With that being said, have a nice day.